Hello. We're at This Week at Work Hard, and I'm Ryan Haggerty, Director of Workforce Development, and with me today is Zabrion.
I'm Zabrion.
Zabrion Smith, you want to get real specific here, but so I am not Josh Lucas, but I do have a lot of different things that I get to do here at Work Hard, as well as with our sister companies, Academy Pittsburgh and all that. So today we're really getting into, we put out some numbers recently about outcomes about Academy, which Academy does all these tech trainings, get people into tech jobs. And basically we were looking at, if there's this big market demands for jobs, what's actually happening in the market. We're a part of that market as Academy, but so are all these higher institutes of learning that are here in Pittsburgh. And so who's actually addressing that problem and creating access for people? So I don't know, you have a chance to check out those numbers a little bit, just to maybe say some of what we were finding, or
I did, but could you help me get a better understanding of what do you all actually term as a success? Do you all do we as Academy have the same criteria for a successful completion of the program as maybe an institution of higher learning or something like that?
Yeah. So just some basic outcome stuff we're talking about here. So this would be your reporting you might see in an annual report for a lot of organizations, or just general marketing data like we were putting out. But basically, if a participant goes through, they successfully finish the training, right? They've gone to the courses, they've met the competencies, they're job ready. That's one metric, right? You're just did you get through it? And then we're also actively asking them, what are you actually trying to do now? Are you a job seeker? You trying to go in business for yourself? And if you're actively seeking a job, that's a whole separate metric that we're measuring. And whenever that person gets, accepts that first hire at a certain amount of money, that's really success for us. We want people to have that personal wealth building and, a long-term career pathway in tech, because it's growing. It's not going away anytime soon. That's really how we're measuring success there.
Okay, so I'm hearing that there are multiple metrics, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's a very nuanced topic, right? So with Academy and these other institutions, they all propose, but they're not all technically proposing the same thing, right? Like the web developer course is different than.
Yeah. So really, if you want to say what does our brand do well, or what do we train people for? Essentially, we're training a lot of people who are career changers to get into entry level tech jobs, right? Or junior roles, they might call them. And then you move up into those higher, associate, mid levels, all the way up to senior in that career pathway. So when we're saying what does our training prepare people for, it's those entry level jobs. Now, if you are looking at an institute of higher learning, you might have those bachelor students that we could look at being about the same level of competitiveness for those same jobs here in the market. And then they might have master's and doctorate students that really they're competing for different jobs. So that is worth bringing that nuance in there to say, what are our different brands of training actually doing? What kind of jobs are they preparing people for at what level? And then really, I think the other part of it, we mentioned accessibility, which we'll get to, but it's also, how responsive can we be to what the market demand is? And I'd say with, a 4-year degree, or, you can start to get into those master's or doctorate levels, you're talking 6 years plus now before you have a fully prepared human. So that's very different from what we might be doing here at Academy with a 12-week boot camp, for example.
So that basically explains why we do need boot camps, and boot camps need to be able to be scaled up, because I know just alone in the Pittsburgh region, we are not meeting the demand for the jobs in the tech and tech adjacent industry that we could be doing. So that begs really, it raises rather two questions for me. One being, what exactly does Academy need in order to grow, right, outside of capital? What are some of those things that you're looking for? And then two, is there any possibility of connecting with these institutions, and is there any benefit to that? Or do you all service, kind of different demographics.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the first part. It's really thinking about the whole thing is a pipeline that has different entry points and exit points for people when you're thinking about workforce, right? Which really where we step in, you were talking about the demand, like actually filling these jobs for these employers that aren't getting currently filled. We're able to prepare people at that entry level to kind of go in and start there and be like I don't know, like they've just come out of a boot camp, so they're having to learn how to learn as an adult again really quickly. But they've also got this professional experience background, so they are workplace ready in a lot of ways. They just need to be able to speak that technical language, to be able to navigate and figure out which job role might be appropriate considering their previous professional experience. And so they're able to kind of step in and meet that demand in a I guess a more condensed fashion than it might take it for that 4-year program to do. And I'm like rambling now because I lost the thread on that question a little bit. What was the first part?
That really was the first part.
Okay. And then you were talking about partnerships.
Well, yeah, just okay. So the first part was what are those resources outside of capital?
Gotcha. That we need still. Okay. You know? So speaking to that pipeline, then obviously you have those participants that we're talking about, which COVID wrecked a lot of people's lives. So that's one factor coming in that we expect to see more people trying to get into this sector because people are self-reflecting right now and they want to be able to make good money and have a job for a long time for the skills that they're learning. But then on the other end of it is you got to have employers, right? You got to have jobs. So these employers, we started this about 2016, and I would say a lot of these placements that were happening out of boot camps, because it was very new to Pittsburgh, were happening with startups and maybe some mid-sized companies that we had some, social capital with, professional relationships with that we could do that. But I think over the years, because the demand has been so great and because boot camp grads have made a really good impression on the Pittsburgh marketplace in terms of bringing out these fully trained professionals, often adults with professional experience already, people are kind of seeing this as like a really great option now. And we basically operate under a private school license, which has always existed in the state of Pennsylvania for a lot of different training options, but we're applying it to specific demand that these tech and tech adjacent industries have on the job market right now.
Okay. I want to scrap the partnership question. I want to ask about this pipeline that we're talking about. If we are, and when I say we, I mean the economic development community as a whole, if we are all tasked with creating these jobs to meet the market demand and we're failing to do so, to me that suggests that there is a portion of the pipeline that's incomplete.
Yeah, so it's crazy right now. I just mentioned 2016, there was like no boot camps. We were the first. Tech Elevator followed soon after that. They're in multiple states across the Midwest right now. And then just this year, there's at least 2 or 3 more that have been rolled out. So our market still is not saturated, even for the kinds of trainings that we do. But the opportunity is there and people are starting to capitalize on it. So really the question in my mind is how much of a homegrown effort can this be and what does that look like versus some of these outside the state, outside the city training partners that are or providers that are coming in, and what does that look like in the long term, right? Because it is a market, and if a national training provider were to say, okay, Pittsburgh is not as lucrative, we're going to move out. Well, now we've lost capacity to fill those jobs you're talking about here in Pittsburgh. Okay. So, the question really comes down to how much of a homegrown effort should this be in building some of these things from the ground up or amplifying the efforts such as what we do here at Academy versus how much outside recruitment, which is very similar to what, hiring managers are doing right now too. They're recruiting outside and local talent.
I want to make sure that we kind of stay there though. So sure. Let's just say we receive a blank check from all the foundations. They say, solve the entire demand issue. What are these actual issues? Like what are the missing pieces in the pipeline that allow us to get to 100% capacity filled?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just what are those other jobs, right? So if we're doing entry level, I think there's more entry level people we could be putting out there, but considering also that we've been here since 2016. Even some of the people that we've trained now, they've moved on to their second, third, fourth, role at this point. They may be looking to get some cloud architect training. Maybe that's helpful for them to add that extra, 10, 20, whatever K that is now that they're a mid or a senior level person. But it's also those job roles still need filled, right? So even if we're aiming at entry level, there's other, moving in whichever direction you want to move within those job roles that we could be training for that we aren't necessarily training for with the developer boot camp currently. And then on the other side of that, there's still people that want to participate in this that are struggling. So when you just come down to access.
Struggling, how so?
It's all access, right? You think about someone's daily life. What are their responsibilities and what are they doing for a living right now? And how are they going to try to pivot from that into a role in, the tech adjacent marketplace? And, it could be something is like common as being a single parent, right? That's, in 2020, that was like probably wrecked a lot of people's days, having their kids at home and things like that, trying to figure out work issues. But imagine trying to do work, be a single parent, and do a training like that. People have hustle and people have game and people are motivated, but people deserve like good options to be able to better their own personal wealth building too, that don't stress them out just to get that to that end goal.
And then you also, I imagine, have a lot of the other barriers to entry, like transportation and education. How much does that play a role? So in a boot camp like ours versus an institution, do we see a difference in like the beginning education, right? Or
it's hard to put a finger on because like I said, a lot of the people that have gone through our program, it is a full-time program, which is its own barrier to access for some of the reasons we were talking about, people that might have to work full-time that can't take the 3 months off, or, people that are on unemployment. Sometimes these are attractive things because they do have some income while they're doing the training. But even within our own program, we realize while we might be serving a diverse population in terms of race or other demographic factors, these people tend to be people that are of a certain economic class that have the privilege to take our boot camp in a way, right? So we ourselves, while we are creating access for those people, we know there's other populations out there just based off conversations with like Women in Tech Pittsburgh, who run a really great program that's dedicated just to Black women of color being able to do something, learn at your own pace online, which is a much better fit for them. They're actually able to take the time, go through, learn at their own pace, work, deal with their home lives, and get, an entry point into this conversation and some skill sets and into a community that can help them continue to grow.
So how does a partnership between like Women in Tech Pittsburgh and Academy Pittsburgh, what does that look like exactly?
There's simple things, right? Like even within our alum network, they need mentors over at Women in Tech Pittsburgh just to start like anybody that's getting involved in this, right, is always looking for that mentor. And they're going, okay, well, I like this UX UI thing because I'm about design, but I really want to talk to a human about this, right? So it's great to have this huge alum network that's out here actively working in the field to be able to converse with their training participants and say, here's what you can expect. Here's the salary range you should be asking for. Here's how many interviews you're going to have to go through just to get that first job. And, as much as this is about training and about thinking about numbers and economic demand and all that, these are very, this is relationship and community building too. So us just being able to lend some of our expertise and, them learn from some of our mistakes too, honestly, is super helpful. But I think once their people go through that program, they potentially could join our program too and continue to learn until they get to that entry level job and are making, a healthy salary to be able to then pass it on to the next person.
And I think, just one final point that's really important to note is that a Women in Tech Pittsburgh doesn't exist without Academy being able to create like kind of that beginning point, right? Because Shawnee came through that program.
Yeah, so I would say it's not that they wouldn't exist. It's that people like Shawnee, so Shawnee's an Academy grad. She's heading up operations at Women in Tech. There's a whole group of people that helped found that. But I think what's important to note is that Shawnee went through a program where she saw some of the foundations of what they could be building there.
Right.
And like I said, she can also lean on that network for resources, which is super important in all of this. Like wherever you're coming in, you need that community, just like any other job where you're trying to, you're trying to get the inside angle on what's open, what should I be doing, what kind of coding languages should I be learning, where are the free resources at, hook me up, right? So I think it's almost more important to say that it may have taken them longer. We amplify what they do.
Okay.
And that's really how I look at it. And you were asking earlier, like, how does this grow? It's like, we got to continue to grow up this community, and we're not going to address all those barriers of access ourselves, but we can certainly help Women in Tech Pittsburgh amplify what they're doing to do what they do well.
Sounds good to me.
So I think we're in the last couple minutes of it here. So yeah, I mean, just to put a pin on it, like, this is something that's been around for a while, being able to do these private license education schools. We just saw a unique opportunity to apply this to the tech market to meet that job demand. And moving forward, we're doing new things like offering flexible training times with our new digital marketing boot camp, and looking at ways that an apprenticeship will get people to a quicker job placement versus doing what we're doing now, which is interview days with employers and assisting people with kind of like the job search. If we were able to just add an apprenticeship to each of our programs, there would be a certain number of people coming out of it that would just roll right into the job, which is a very natural flow for somebody whose brain has been trained how to learn something very quickly, moving into a job role, and now learning very quickly on the job too. So, but I think that's all we got for today. So I'm being hit with debris now. So I guess we'll just wrap it up by saying, Zabrion, how you feeling about the future of tech here in Pittsburgh? There's a lot of stuff going on right now, but
I guess I would say the future seems bright.
it very much does. We have bright lights in our face. So we'll see you guys next week for This Week at Work Hard. But yeah, we appreciate you, and we'll see you around.